Imagine picking up a book that promises to explain why love feels so easy for some people and so exhausting for others. This book does exactly that, blending decades of academic research with practical tools you can use on your very next date. Its dual purpose is clear from the start. Explain the science of adult attachment, then put that science to work in your real romantic life. Three big ideas sit at the heart of everything: how we attach to others, how we relate to them day to day, and how we build true intimacy. Together, those three themes form a complete picture of why your closest relationships feel the way they do. You are about to get a map of human connection that researchers have spent generations drawing and refining for you. Before diving in, one honest boundary is set. This book is powerful, but it cannot replace professional medical or psychological help. If you are dealing with a serious health or mental health concern, please speak with a qualified professional alongside reading this. That honesty up front is actually reassuring. It means everything else the book offers is grounded in care rather than overblown promises. Think of every person you have ever dated and ask yourself, did they lean in, pull back, or simply feel at ease in your arms? Those three patterns have names: secure, anxious, and avoidant, and together they explain almost everything about how people behave in love. More than half of all people are secure, about 1 in 5 is anxious, and roughly 1 in 4 is avoidant. Knowing which style fits you is like getting night vision goggles for navigating the confusing landscape of modern romance. Your attachment style did not appear out of nowhere. It is millions of years old, forged when staying close to someone meant staying alive. In harsh, ancient environments, pulling away from a partner saved energy and resources, which is exactly why avoidant behavior still exists today. Clinging intensely to one person had its own survival value in dangerous places, which planted the seeds of anxious attachment deep in our biology. That ancient wiring still fires in your modern chest every time a text goes unanswered or a partner seems to drift away. When an anxious person feels their partner drifting away, an alarm sounds inside them that is almost impossible to ignore. That alarm drives what researchers call protest behavior, calling over and over, threatening to leave, or trying to spark jealousy just to feel reconnected. These actions feel urgent and necessary in the moment, rooted in a powerful biological drive to restore closeness with someone who matters. Understanding that the behavior is understandable does not mean it is helpful, and that distinction opens the door to real change. Most psychological frameworks study only people already in therapy, but attachment theory was built by watching everyone: happy couples, lonely singles, ordinary families. That broad foundation means the insights apply to you whether you are newly dating, deeply partnered, or freshly heartbroken. You do not need to be broken to benefit. Attachment theory is simply a sharper lens for anyone who wants better relationships. The real breakthrough came when researchers moved attachment theory out of the lab and into real dating decisions people make every week. Once people learned to identify styles quickly and reliably, they started using that knowledge to avoid painful matches before they began. Knowing your style and a potential partner's becomes a compass that points you toward relationships that will actually nourish you. Two people can love each other deeply and still make each other miserable if one craves constant closeness while the other needs constant space. Each person's natural tendencies get amplified by the other's behavior, creating a cycle of frustration that neither person chose and neither fully understands. Attachment theory shifts the conversation from "what is wrong with you" to "what happens when two very different systems collide." That shift from blame to pattern recognition is where healing and real love actually begins. You have probably heard the message 100 times. A healthy person does not need a partner to feel whole. That message sounds empowering, but science says it is flat wrong. Once two people bond, they literally regulate each other's minds and bodies. Calling your need for a partner codependency is like calling your need for food a character flaw. It misnames something biological and universal. Here is the beautiful paradox. The more you can lean on your partner, the more freely and boldly you can act on your own. When emotional needs are met early in the day, protest behaviors quiet down, and your attention turns outward toward goals, friends, and adventures. Two people who depend on each other effectively end up being more independent, not less, than those who try to go it alone. Research confirmed that adults show the same three attachment styles as infants: secure, anxious, and avoidant, in almost exactly the same proportions. Adults can sometimes substitute physical closeness with knowing a partner is emotionally available, but the core need for connection never disappears. Society accepted long ago that children need attachment figures. It is time to accept that adults need them just as much. Unmet attachment needs do not just cause emotional pain. They create real, measurable stress inside your body every single day. Research found that a satisfying relationship can lower blood pressure for people with mild hypertension, while an unsatisfying one raises it whenever partners are near. The quality of your emotional bond is not just a feeling. It is a health outcome that shows up in measurable ways inside your body. When your partner supports your personal goals, studies show you report higher self-esteem, better mood, and more confidence about actually reaching them. Just like a child who ventures further from the playground when a trusted caregiver is watching, you reach further when you have a secure home base. Without that base, people grow more closed off and less willing to risk the things that make life feel worth living. Even the most fiercely independent, avoidant person carries the same deep need for connection. They have simply learned to suppress it rather than show it. Suppressing a need does not make it disappear. It just pushes it underground where it quietly drives behavior in ways nobody fully sees. The pull toward attachment is universal. No style, no matter how emotionally defended, can completely shut that wiring off. Before you can choose better relationships, you need to understand the relationship blueprint already running inside you. Your attachment style is described as your relationship DNA, the invisible code that shapes what you need and who can actually give it to you. Finding your own style is step one, not because it limits you, but because it makes every step after far more powerful and precise. Once you know yourself, the next skill is learning to read the people around you before you get too deeply involved. Recognizing another person's style early tells you whether they are actually capable of meeting your needs or likely to fall short. This is not about judging people. It is about protecting your heart with clear, honest information instead of wishful thinking. One pairing gets a clear and serious warning. When an anxious person and an avoidant person come together, specific and predictable problems arise. Their needs for closeness are so different that the relationship costs both people enormous emotional energy, day after exhausting day. The book is honest. Understanding this trap helps you decide whether to work hard on improving things or to make the harder choice and leave. For those who choose to stay and fight for their anxious avoidant relationship, the book does not abandon you with just a warning. It offers specific, tailored guidance, understanding each partner's vulnerabilities and following practical steps to move toward healthier, more secure ground. Change is genuinely possible when both people understand what drives them and commit to showing up differently for each other. The final section teaches the communication and conflict skills that securely attached people use naturally and that anyone can learn. These tools are called a lifeline for anxious and avoidant people, but they raise satisfaction even for couples who are already doing well. Think of them as upgrades anyone can install, no matter where they are starting from on the attachment spectrum. Your attachment style is not a simple label. It lives along two sliding scales that together point to where you really land. The first scale measures how comfortable you feel letting someone get genuinely close to you, emotionally and physically. The second scale measures how much you worry, deep down, about whether your partner truly loves and values you. If you are anxious, you are capable of enormous warmth and intimacy. But a quiet fear keeps whispering that your partner wants less closeness than you do. That fear makes you hyper-alert to tiny shifts in a partner's tone or body language, scanning constantly for signs of withdrawal. The emotional stress this creates is real and exhausting, and it can push you into reactions you later regret and cannot fully explain. Secure people feel at ease being warm and close without losing themselves, and they share feelings as naturally as they share breakfast. They are good at both expressing their own emotions and reading what their partner is feeling, which keeps conversations balanced and real. Being with a secure person tends to feel like breathing, easy and steady rather than a constant negotiation for air. Avoidant people prize their independence above almost everything else, and they keep partners at a careful emotional distance. On the outside, they look calm and unaffected, but research on infants shows that inner stress levels are just as high. It is just hidden. Understanding that avoidant calm is a performance, not a reality, changes how you interpret a partner who seems cold under pressure. Scientists first mapped the three styles by watching babies aged 9 to 18 months react when their parent left the room and then returned. Those reunion moments, whether a baby ran to be held, avoided the parent, or clung and struggled, painted a vivid picture of each attachment style. The same patterns show up decades later in adult arguments, breakups, and the way people say goodnight to someone they love. A small group of people score high on both anxiety and avoidance, feeling both desperate for closeness and deeply uncomfortable with it at once. This rare combination creates a painful push-pull experience that can feel impossible to understand or explain to a partner. If that sounds familiar, reading about both the anxious and avoidant styles will give you the fullest picture of your own landscape. You do not need to quiz a date about their childhood to figure out their attachment style. Their daily behavior tells you everything you need. People reveal their style through offhand comments, how they talk about exes, and how they respond when you need something from them. The skill is simply learning to be a careful, patient observer rather than someone swept along by charm or chemistry. One question cuts through every other detail. Does this person actually seek intimacy and genuine closeness, or do they subtly move away from it? If the answer is no, you are almost certainly looking at an avoidant style, and everything else flows from that single recognition. Personality, humor, and attractiveness are all real, but they cannot substitute for the fundamental willingness to let someone in. The fastest and most reliable way to reveal a partner's style is to openly share a need or feeling, and then watch what happens next. A secure partner will try to meet the need. An anxious partner will feel relieved. An avoidant partner will call you too sensitive or shut down. This honest communication acts like a litmus test, revealing more in one moment than months of casual dates ever could. No single moment is enough to read someone's attachment style. You must wait for a pattern to emerge across many situations. Not meeting a partner's kids could be thoughtful parenting or avoidant distance. Context and repeated behavior together tell the real story. Patient observation, not rushed judgment, is what turns attachment knowledge into genuine wisdom about another person. Once you understand attachment, you stop reading a partner's distance as a verdict on your worth and start seeing it as their pattern. That shift from what is wrong with me to what is this relationship structure is one of the most freeing changes you can make. It gives you the clarity to decide whether to invest more energy or to redirect it towards someone who can truly meet you. With a secure partner, you stop spending energy negotiating for closeness, because closeness is simply the air the relationship breathes. Secure partners communicate clearly and look for solutions that work for both people, so no one consistently wins by making the other feel small. Research ties that kind of freedom, being fully yourself with another person, to greater happiness than almost any other relationship quality. Anxious people have a real superpower. They notice emotional shifts on faces faster than anyone else in the room. But if they react immediately on that first read, they often misread what they see, rushing to the worst conclusion before the full picture is clear. When forced to wait and gather more information, their sensitivity becomes a genuine advantage rather than a source of constant false alarms. Brain scans show that when anxious women think about breakups or conflict, the emotion centers of their brains light up more intensely than in other women. At the same time, the brain regions that normally dial negative feelings back down are less active, making it biologically harder to stop worrying. This is not a character flaw or a sign of weakness. It is a real, measurable difference in how an anxious brain processes relationship threat. Here is one of the cruelest ironies. Anxious people are most strongly drawn to the one type of partner who will reliably make them most unhappy. Studies show anxious and avoidant people gravitate toward each other, each confirming the other's deepest fears in a loop that feels almost impossible to break. An anxious person actually thrives best with a secure partner, yet the secure person often feels far less exciting than the avoidant one does. When you date an avoidant, the emotional roller coaster of warm moments followed by cold distance keeps your attachment system fired up constantly. Over time, your nervous system starts to confuse that constant state of worry and brief relief with what love and passion are supposed to feel like. You end up chasing the very cycle that exhausts you because your brain has been trained to read that exhaustion as proof of deep feeling. When a secure, consistent person shows interest, an anxious individual often feels almost nothing. No flutter, no excitement, no spark. The reason is not that the secure person is boring, it is that their steadiness does not trigger the anxious attachment system at all. Because drama has been mislabeled as chemistry, calm and genuine care get rejected as the absence of feeling, rather than recognized as its truest form. No group has more to gain from learning about attachment than anxious people. They suffer most in the wrong match and flourish most in the right one. When an anxious person finds a secure partner, the constant activation gradually fades and a calmer, happier version of themselves can finally emerge. Many of the anxious person's so-called problems are actually responses to the wrong relationship, not permanent flaws in who they are. Word recognition tests reveal something striking. Avoidants are slower to notice words like separation and loss until their attention is divided. When their mental guard is split by another task, they react to those same painful words just as fast as everyone else does. The attachment system is still running. Avoidants simply expend constant effort keeping it hidden from themselves and from the people they love. Avoidants use a toolkit of daily behaviors to keep emotional closeness at bay, focusing on a partner's small flaws, never saying, "I love you." Mentally checking out mid-conversation. These deactivating strategies work in the short term, but come at a steep long-term price: loneliness and a growing sense of dissatisfaction. The more these tools are used, the further away the possibility of genuine closeness retreats, even for someone who quietly craves it. Research found that avoidants consistently rate their partners less positively than other people do, even on days when their partners are clearly warm and loving. When something genuinely loving happens, avoidants tend to ignore or downplay it rather than let it update their negative view. This bias is not cruelty. It is a defense system running so hard that it distorts reality to protect a fragile sense of independence. Emotional self-sufficiency may have been a survival advantage in ancient harsh environments, but it is a real disadvantage in modern intimate relationships. Studies consistently show that avoidants tend to be less happy and less satisfied in their romantic lives than people with any other attachment style. The very trait that felt like strength in one context becomes the ceiling that keeps love from fully arriving. Most avoidants blame outside factors, wrong partners, bad timing, never finding the one, rather than examining what they themselves bring to relationships. Because they rarely look inward, change almost never happens on its own. It usually takes a painful crisis like severe loneliness to force honest self-reflection. Self-awareness is the door. Without it, the pattern simply repeats across relationship after relationship without anyone fully understanding why. The same science that reveals avoidance defenses also points toward a way through. Distraction can actually lower the emotional guard and let warmth surface. Activities like hiking, cooking, or playing a game together give the avoidance protective mind something else to do while real feelings quietly emerge. Recognizing deactivating strategies, focusing on a partner's genuine strengths, and choosing a secure partner are all practical steps toward a warmer life. A 4-month study tracking university couples found that secure people maintained high satisfaction and trust, while insecure people watched both steadily decline. Even more striking, couples with just one secure partner functioned just as well as couples where both partners were secure. One calm, secure person actively lifts the whole relationship. This buffering effect means your partner's style matters as much as your own. Unlike avoidants who suppress threatening thoughts and show hidden stress when distracted, secure people are simply less bothered even at the unconscious level. If they are asked to dwell on abandonment, they do feel nervous, but their stress fades quickly once they stop, without lingering into the next hour. Their calm is not a wall or a performance, it is built into how their nervous system processes closeness and connection. Secure people don't play games, they don't confuse sex with emotional distance, and they forgive quickly rather than storing grievances for future arguments. They communicate feelings freely and do not act defensively during fights, which keeps arguments from escalating into something that does lasting damage. Together, these habits create a relationship environment that feels like safe ground to stand on, rather than a tightrope to constantly balance on. About a quarter to a third of adults actually change their attachment style over time, which means your current style is not your permanent destiny. Powerful adult relationships can rewrite the core beliefs you carry about closeness, nudging you toward or away from security depending on who you choose. Being with a secure partner is one of the most reliable paths to becoming more secure yourself, which is the best argument for choosing wisely. Providing a secure base for someone you love means 3 things. Be available when they struggle, don't interfere when they are succeeding, and encourage their growth. The interference piece is subtle but crucial. Supporting from behind the scenes lets your partner feel in control of their own achievements and their own life. When all 3 are present, your partner can go out into the world boldly, knowing someone steady is holding the home base for them. Secure people believe many good partners exist and that they genuinely deserve to be loved, so they are not desperate enough to ignore red flags. They spot warning signs early and treat them as real information rather than obstacles their love can somehow overcome or fix. That clear-eyed approach, expecting dignity and respect as a baseline, steers them naturally toward partners who can actually make them happy. When partners have mismatched intimacy needs, arguments about appliances, vacations, and weekend plans are almost never really about those things. The washing machine fight is always the togetherness fight in disguise, and solving it at the surface level changes nothing underneath. Until partners name the real conflict, how much closeness each person needs to feel loved, the same fight will keep arriving in a new costume. An avoidant partner spending the whole day at a sibling's house to do laundry looks like a simple errand, but functions as a carefully constructed escape from closeness. For the anxious partner left at home, that repeated absence does not feel logistical. It feels like being pushed steadily out of someone's life. Each ordinary habit that creates distance quietly adds weight to a growing question. Does this person actually want to be close to me? Asking for a washing machine may truly be about time and convenience on the surface, but the deeper drive can be wanting a partner physically nearby more often. Anxious people sometimes seek closeness through practical solutions because asking directly, "I need more of you," feels too exposed and too risky. Learning to name the emotional need beneath the practical one is the first step toward a conversation that can actually bring two people closer. A demand for one shared hotel bed on vacation looks unreasonable until you learn that this partner regularly retreats to a separate bed after sex. Seen in that context, the insistence is not stubbornness. It is a direct response to a long pattern of feeling emotionally abandoned at the moment of greatest vulnerability. When you understand a person's attachment history, their extreme positions almost always start to make quiet, heartbreaking sense. Many anxious people feel genuine embarrassment about how strongly they need closeness, as though that need is a personal failing rather than a human truth. That shame often comes from years of having a valid need dismissed, minimized, or met with a partner's quiet retreat. The need for closeness is not a flaw. It is simply a need that is not being met, and that difference in framing changes everything. Arguments about social media friends or missed phone calls are just the surface where a much deeper conflict about desired intimacy has broken through. As long as both partners keep arguing about the symptom, the real issue stays buried, and the fight is guaranteed to keep returning. Naming the deeper need, "I want more closeness" or "I need more space," is the only conversation that can actually move things forward. Anxious people respond to relationship stress by pushing for closeness. Avoidant people respond to the same stress by pulling toward distance. Each partner's reaction triggers the other's worst fears, creating a loop where both people feel constantly unsettled and neither can relax. Breaking the loop requires one person to step sideways out of their automatic reaction, which is hard but becomes easier once you can see the pattern clearly. For most people, resolving a conflict brings relief and closeness. But for avoidance, that very closeness is the uncomfortable part they are trying to avoid. So instead of working toward resolution, avoidant partners tend to become more hostile and withdrawn as a fight continues, leaving it permanently unfinished. Unsolved conflicts pile up quietly over months and years, creating a weight in the relationship that no single good weekend can lift. During a heated argument, an anxious person may say extreme things or threaten to leave, then feel flooded with warmth once the intensity passes. By then, the avoidant partner has mentally cataloged every harsh word and retreated further, and reconciliation requires the anxious person to plead. The anxious person often accepts even less closeness than before the fight started, which means the argument made things measurably worse. Intimacy differences rarely stay in one corner of a relationship. They spread into how couples sleep, raise children, handle illness, and mark milestones. Every major life event gives those different needs a new arena to clash in, and the distance between two people can actually grow wider as life gets more complicated. What starts as a small gap in a new relationship can quietly become a canyon by the time a couple has been together a decade. An anxious avoidant relationship can last for years without breaking apart, but lasting and thriving are two very different things. There is always an undercurrent of uncertainty and chronic dissatisfaction, a low hum of unease that neither person can quite name or silence. This is what researchers call stable instability, a relationship that holds together, but never reaches a comfortable closeness that works for both people. Attachment styles tend to be stable, but research confirms they can shift, and when people move towards security, their health and relationships measurably improve. That gives every couple genuine hope. Even if neither partner starts from a secure place, the destination is still reachable. Change doesn't require a perfect past. It requires awareness, intention, and the willingness to practice something different, one conversation at a time. Think of someone in your life who handles relationships with warmth, steadiness, and generosity. A friend, a parent, a mentor, even a character from a story you love. You can borrow their best qualities and blend them into an integrated, secure role model, a mental guide for how you want to respond under pressure. Recalling that model before a difficult conversation actually primes your nervous system to respond more securely, even before you have said a word. Think about how you treat the pet you adore, overlooking the chewed shoe, greeting them with genuine delight no matter what kind of day you had. That easy, forgiving warmth mirrors exactly the kind of regard found in the healthiest, secure relationships between people. Tapping into those feelings as a starting point can help you practice a more open, less defensive way of relating to the person you love. Writing out your past and present relationships from an attachment lens lets you spot the unhelpful patterns you have been carrying without seeing them. Because memories are partly rewritten each time you recall them, reviewing them through a new lens can actually shift the beliefs you hold about yourself and love. This inventory process is quiet but powerful. It works like editing old code so your relationship software runs more smoothly going forward. If a couple cannot reach security together, understanding that the conflict comes from mismatched needs, not personal failings, protects self-esteem. An anxious partner who blames themselves for being pushed away can find relief in recognizing that an avoidant would distance from almost anyone, not just them. Even without a full transformation, this shift in perspective is genuinely valuable. You stop punishing yourself for someone else's wiring. Moving towards security is not a single breakthrough moment. It is an ongoing practice that includes both solving problems and creating joy together. Research by Dr. Sue Johnson supports the idea that genuinely acknowledging how much you depend on your partner and building real trust is what strengthens the bond most deeply. The path is incremental, but every small step toward openness and care compounds, and eventually, secure love stops feeling like something you have to work at. A common belief says only people with childhood wounds or self-destructive tendencies stay stuck in harmful relationships, but that belief is wrong. Emotionally healthy people from loving families can get caught in the anxious avoidant trap just as completely, because the pull between these styles is genuinely powerful. Understanding this removes the shame. Getting stuck is not a sign of weakness. It is what happens when biology meets a very specific emotional match. Avoidant partners are often charming with strangers and dismissive or cruel with the person they are actually closest to, and this confusion is by design. For avoidance, closeness triggers discomfort, so the person they are most attached to becomes the one they push away hardest. You are not being treated badly despite being closest, you are being treated badly because of it, and that single reframe changes everything. Avoidant partners often use reduced or emotionally detached sex as a deactivating strategy, keeping even the most intimate moment at a careful arm's length. For the anxious partner, sex carries enormous emotional weight. It is affirmation and connection. For the avoidant, it can feel like a threat to their independence. This gap in what physical intimacy means to each partner creates one of the loneliest experiences two people in the same bed can have. Once you are truly attached to someone, your brain is wired to turn to them for comfort, even when they are the source of your pain. Just being in the same room as an avoidant partner can instantly calm an anxious person's distress, which makes walking away feel almost physically impossible. This is not weakness. It is the attachment system doing exactly what it was built to do, and knowing that can stop a lot of unnecessary self-blame. After years of repeated emotional hurt, something in the anxious person begins to shift. The daily tears stop, and faults become more visible than good moments. This gradual emotional withdrawal, borrowing the avoidant's own tool of deactivation, slowly makes leaving feel survivable rather than catastrophic. It is a painful way to arrive at freedom, but for many anxious people, it is the only path the biology allows. The safest exit from a harmful attachment relationship is a planned one. Go somewhere nurturing, call the people who love you, and keep reminders of why you had to leave. These steps manage the separation distress that will arrive and push you to go back, especially in the raw first days after leaving. Building that support network before you leave, not after, is one of the most important acts of self-care an anxious person can take. Instead of spending months quietly wondering if someone is right for you, being direct about your needs gives you fast and clear answers. How a potential partner reacts to your honest communication tells you far more about their capacity for love than 3 months of carefully observed behavior. This approach saves months of emotional investment in someone who is never going to meet you where you needed to be met. When you state what you need in a calm, clear voice, you do not come across as desperate or needy. You come across as self-assured and worth knowing. Hiding your needs to seem low maintenance is not strength. It is a strategy that produces shallow connections and steady, quiet loneliness. Real confidence in love looks like saying what you need and trusting that the right person will be glad you told them. Lauren's story shows what happens when you speak early. By being direct, she discovered within weeks that her date was not truly available to her. Without that honesty, she might have spent a year emotionally investing in a dead-end connection built on a hidden agenda. Being direct is not just emotionally brave, it is one of the most practical ways to protect your time and your heart. Anxious people often get flooded with negative feelings so quickly that they express needs through accusation, ultimatum, or sudden tears, rather than calm words. This explosive delivery causes partners to pull back rather than lean in, which is the opposite of what the anxious person desperately needs in that moment. Learning to pause, regulate, and speak from the feeling rather than from the fear breaks the cycle and changes what partners are able to hear. 5 principles build communication that actually works. Be emotionally honest, focus on what you feel and need, be specific about what bothers you, avoid blame, and stand firm. Using the words, I need, I feel, and I want keeps the conversation anchored in your own experience rather than in an attack on your partner's character. These 5 principles keep even hard conversations productive and respectful, giving both people the best possible chance of actually being heard. Avoidant people often feel an urgent need for space in relationships without fully understanding why, which leads to sudden retreats that confuse and hurt their partners. Learning to name that need early. I get overwhelmed by closeness and sometimes need time alone. It's not about you, reduces the partner's anxiety enormously. This one act of honesty can break the push-pull cycle before it begins, giving both people a chance at something genuinely workable. The belief that happy couples rarely argue is one of the most damaging myths in modern relationships. All couples argue, even deeply secure ones. What actually determines relationship happiness is not the number of arguments, but the style and subject of those arguments. Conflicts handled with care and honesty can actually draw 2 people closer, making them better together than they were before the argument started. Secure couples follow 5 habits in conflict. They care about each other's well-being, stay on topic, avoid sweeping generalizations, stay engaged, and communicate clearly. In practice, this looks like 2 people with different weekend preferences taking turns rather than one always giving in to the other's wishes. These habits are learnable. They are not innate gifts, but practice skills that anyone willing to pay attention can build over time. Anxious people enter fights already expecting rejection, which makes them use protest tactics, accusations, silent treatment, dramatic exits, to force a response. Avoidant people shut down emotionally when things get personal, pulling away exactly when their partner most needs them to stay present. The common thread under both patterns is a deep, private belief that a partner will not truly show up when it matters most. When you expect the worst from a partner mid-argument, you react defensively before anything hurtful has even happened, and then cause the very harm you feared. Choosing to assume your partner means well, even if you have to force yourself to believe it, steers the conversation somewhere better. That single assumption, practiced consistently, interrupts the self-fulfilling cycle of fear that keeps so many arguments from ever reaching resolution. When an argument about one specific situation veers into broad personal accusations, the original issue gets buried under defensive reactions on both sides. Secure people are better at understanding what is really bothering their partner and steering the conversation back toward the actual problem, not the person. When both people feel heard on the real issue, the argument can end, and what follows is closeness rather than a cold, unspoken standoff. 6 habits consistently damage relationships: getting sidetracked from the real issue, burying feelings, making personal attacks, matching negativity with more negativity, withdrawing, and ignoring a partner's well-being. A single argument can hit all 6 of these in under 10 minutes, leaving both people feeling worse than they did before it started. Recognizing these patterns in yourself is the beginning of changing them, and changing them is the beginning of the relationship you have always deserved. Love is not left to chance when you know your own blueprint, read the patterns around you, and choose to build something genuinely secure.